This week on Business and Economy Week, inflation retreats to 3.5% as energy costs decline, marking the steepest monthly decrease since 2020. The Federal Reserve Chair commits to continued price stabilization efforts. Texas invests $950 million in semiconductor manufacturing. Meanwhile, Nebraska confronts a significant budget shortfall, while Idaho concludes its fiscal year with a substantial surplus. And a major utility acquisition faces postponement. The Consumer Price Index fell sharply in June, posting its largest monthly decline since April 2020. Overall prices dropped 0.4% on a monthly basis, driven primarily by a 5.7% pullback in energy costs. On a 12-month basis, inflation eased to 3.5% through June, down from 4.2% the prior month. Core inflation, which excludes food and energy, also moderated to 2.6% year over year. However, the data does not capture recent oil market volatility. Brent crude has climbed more than 20% since July 1st, suggesting energy-driven relief may prove temporary. Federal Reserve Chairman Kevin Warsh is scheduled to testify before Congress in coming days, where lawmakers will likely press him on whether recent cooling in inflation can be sustained. Federal Reserve Chair Kevin Warsh testified before Congress on Tuesday, reaffirming the central bank's commitment to combating inflation and lowering mortgage rates. His remarks coincided with new inflation data showing food and fuel costs remain 3.5% higher than a year ago, despite a modest overall decline driven by falling gas prices. Warsh signaled a shift in the Fed's communication strategy, announcing plans to reduce the frequency of press conferences and policy statements. He committed to following the data when making monetary policy decisions and pursuing the Fed's 2% inflation target. Warsh's appointment represents a significant departure from his predecessor, as the central bank faces mounting pressure to respond to White House priorities. Texas is channeling nearly $950 million into semiconductor manufacturing and research through its Semiconductor Innovation Fund. The fund has distributed $512.3 million in grants to 29 projects, which are expected to generate $9.3 billion in total capital investment and create nearly 2,700 direct jobs. Major recipients include Texas Instruments, which received $33.6 million to expand its Richardson facility, and research institutions including Texas A&M University and the University of Texas at Austin. The state's push complements significant private sector expansion, including a $40 billion Texas Instruments plant in Sherman, and planned facilities from NVIDIA and other manufacturers. Texas currently operates 57 semiconductor facilities employing more than 47,000 workers, making it the nation's leading exporter of semiconductor chips. The expansion reflects broader efforts to rebuild domestic production capacity, which has declined from 40% of global manufacturing to just 10%. Nebraska is facing a $223 million budget shortfall as tax collections have fallen significantly short of state projections for 4 consecutive months. The Nebraska Department of Revenue reported that June tax receipts came in 7% below forecasts, with individual income taxes underperforming by 10.6% and generating a $30.9 million loss. Sales and use taxes, however, exceeded projections by 10%, suggesting consumer spending remains resilient. Governor Jim Pillen has ordered all state agencies to implement immediate 5% spending cuts. The revenue challenges come as Nebraska continues reducing its top income tax rate, scheduled to decline to 3.99% in 2027. Lawmakers face a projected $631 million deficit for the 2027 to 2029 biennium as the legislature prepares for its upcoming session. Idaho closed its fiscal year 2026 with a positive cash balance of $250 million, which will carry forward into the new fiscal year beginning July 1st. Governor Brad Little's office announced the result Friday, attributing it to deliberate fiscal discipline. The surplus came despite significant budget pressures. Most state agencies absorbed a 4% spending cut in fiscal year 2026, with cuts deepening to 5% in the current fiscal year 2027. The reductions stem from tax cuts passed by the Idaho legislature that lowered state revenues. Financial Management Administrator Lori Wolf told agency directors to submit only maintenance of operations budget requests for fiscal year 2028, signaling that no significant expansion of government programs is expected. Governor Little stated that the state acted quickly to align spending with available information. Public Service Company of New Mexico and a Blackstone affiliated buyer have agreed to unwind a $400 million stock purchase that the New Mexico Public Regulatory Commission ruled violated state law. The transaction occurred without advance PRC approval. PNM will use a secured loan to buy back the shares from Blackstone, then resell them to repay the loan. The PRC permitted the parties to continue seeking approval for the broader acquisition, but extended the deal closure deadline to May 31, 2027. A year later than originally planned. Multiple federal and state regulators have already approved the transaction. New Mexico PRC clearance remains the final hurdle before the deal can close. Virginia's State Corporation Commission has opened a formal review of Dominion Energy's proposed merger with Florida-based NextEra Energy, valued at $67 billion. The all-stock transaction would create a combined utility serving approximately 10 million customers across 4 states. Under the deal structure, NextEra shareholders would hold 74.5% ownership of the merged entity, while Dominion shareholders would retain 25.5%. Dominion is offering customers a $2.25 billion shareholder-funded bill credit spanning 2 years, and has committed to continuing its fossil-free energy build-out requirements under Virginia's Clean Economy Act. The SEC's 6-month regulatory review period began this week after Dominion filed its official merger arguments Wednesday. Virginia's Attorney General Jay Jones pledged to represent the state's ratepayers in the proceedings. Connecticut has enacted a uniform tax framework for large commercial solar facilities, establishing a fixed annual property tax of $10,000 per megawatt of generating capacity for ground-mounted arrays exceeding 1 megawatt in output. The law takes effect July 1, 2026. State Representative Jamie Foster, who authored the measure as part of an omnibus energy bill, said the standardized approach simplifies cost projections for developers seeking financing. The framework resolves years of disputes over property valuations that strained municipal budgets and prompted litigation. Residential rooftop solar systems remain exempt from property taxation. Municipal leaders and developers have begun negotiating tax arrangements ahead of the deadline. Michigan's Public Act 233, enacted 3 years ago, has fundamentally reshaped how the state approves large-scale renewable energy projects. The law strips townships and counties of their traditional veto power over major solar and wind installations, instead creating a 2-track system. Developers can seek local permits from communities that adopt state-approved ordinances or bypass local control entirely by petitioning the Michigan Public Service Commission directly. The law applies to solar and battery projects exceeding 50 megawatts and wind installations larger than 100 megawatts. 10 projects are currently before the Commission under the state approval pathway. Some communities are adapting by drafting compatible ordinances to retain local authority, while others have declined to regulate utility-scale development. The Michigan Court of Appeals largely upheld the law's application in a May ruling following a 2024 lawsuit by townships challenging its implementation. A major automotive manufacturing project in West Tennessee is reshaping population expectations across the region. Ford Motor Company and SK On announced the Blue Oval City Hub in Haywood County in 2021, expected to reverse decades of decline. But successive production delays have dampened growth. According to Tennessee's 2026 Certified Population Report, only half of 21 West Tennessee counties met their 2025 population growth forecasts. Haywood County itself experienced population decline, losing about 500 residents since 2022 and falling nearly 2,700 short of its 2025 projection. Ford now targets 2029 for gas-powered truck production, down from an initial 2025 start. SK On plans battery production in 2028. With a 2032 deadline for job creation targets under the state incentive agreement, officials will assess whether revised timelines deliver promised employment and growth. The FDA has confirmed a false positive in cyclospora testing of iceberg lettuce from Taylor Farms' Central Mexico facility. The agency announced Saturday that a sample initially tested positive for the parasite, but subsequent quality checks found no true amplification, reversing the earlier finding. Acting FDA Commissioner Kyle Diamantis stated the laboratory error does not alter the investigation's trajectory. The outbreak has sickened more than 1,600 people across 5 states, with shredded lettuce from Taylor Farms sold at Taco Bell restaurants remaining identified as a potential source. The recall advisory stays in effect as the FDA continues investigating other potential sources and commodities. The National Science Foundation has awarded the University of Alaska Fairbanks $15 million to establish a critical minerals accelerator engine. The designation reflects growing federal focus on reducing U.S. dependence on foreign sources for minerals essential to defense systems, renewable energy, and advanced manufacturing. The Geophysical Institute will lead the initiative, coordinating with more than 40 partners, including private industry, native corporations, and academic institutions. Unlike UAF's existing research collaborative, the new center will emphasize moving discoveries toward commercial application and workforce training. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, Alaska contains 56 of 60 critical minerals classified as strategically important. The NSF selected 12 technology innovation centers nationwide in this funding round. Initial 2-year operations could lead to up to $160 million in total funding over a decade. That's the week in business and the American economy from the American Star News. For complete coverage of every story in this briefing, visit theamericanstarnews.com and subscribe so you never miss the weekly report.